Hello, everyone, and welcome to Uncivil Law, where we learn through the misfortunes of others. For today's live content, we're talking about a recent trend on TikTok. Like so many trends on TikTok, dangerous and stupid, potentially deadly. It's a bad idea. It's not the first one the FDA has had to warn people about recently, by the way. The FDA has also very recently had to warn people about another TikTok thing. Purposefully overdosing on Benadryl in order to cause hallucinations. Yeah. The FDA suggests that, purposefully overdosing on the Benadryl might lead to some serious health consequences. But we're not here to talk about the Benadryl. We're here to talk about the hydrochloric acid injector. All right. So first of all, I want to thank the YouTube channels I noted in the description for the information that I'm going to spread related to the medical information, because obviously I'm not a doctor and they are, so I will relay what I learned from them, and then I'll give you some legal information. So this substance, hydrochloric acid, is a naturally occurring substance in the body. It is present in the eyes and joints, and it is used for medical purposes. One of the purposes is to serve as a filler to make parts of the body swell. So you can inject it, and by putting it under the skin, part of the skin will swell because it now has something there it didn't have before. Its most notable use for that purpose is as a lip injector, because apparently big lips are a big trend. I guess. People really want the big lips. So they get the injections to make their lips swell on purpose, so their lips will be bigger. Fine. Now, you can do this in a doctor's office. They will use actual hyaluronic acid, and they will use a needle to inject it into your lips. This procedure costs somewhere between $600 and $1,200 depending on your relevant market. However, some people have decided to shortchange this and do it for $60 themselves at home. Right away, you know this is a bad plan. You don't need a lot of information to tell you this is a bad plan. This is exactly like, hey, my lawyer is charging me $500 an hour. I bet I can do it myself for $20. Great. No, not recommended. So yeah, these people on TikTok and beauty influencers are getting these needles. Apologize, not needles. What they're using is they're using a different kind of injector. So they're not even using needles. They're using a device that is intended for use for injection of insulin. This device creates a high pressure behind a fluid. Fluid doesn't compress, as I'm sure many of you know. So when you create pressure behind a fluid, the fluid can't compress, so the fluid's got to go somewhere. So basically, this device creates a pressure so high, it can permeate the skin without causing serious damage to the skin. It basically forcibly infuses itself through the cell membrane barriers. Pretty badass. This is used for insulin, so you don't have to have needle-based injections. This sounds like pretty badass technology. So you can have the insulin just shoved right through your skin, no needle marks, no damage to the skin. You get the injection, which is an injection of your insulin. Everyone's happy. Okay, great. But this is not approved for other things. Most notably, it is not approved for these lip injections by the FDA. You see, the problem is specifically this air jet mechanism. When it comes to the insulin, people are trained on how to use it, where to use it. And if they use it in the right parts of their body, as instructed by their doctor and is approved by the FDA, they won't have a problem. So it's like you can do it here and not here. And one of the bigger problems with it is it doesn't really control the depth that much, because it's air behind it's liquid. So it isn't able to control the depth that much like a needle where you can put it precisely. But in the case of the insulin injections, that's okay. We don't care about that because the dispersal pattern is such that whatever the range is, it's going to work for that purpose. Great. But it doesn't work so much for the lip injection. The reason that they use a needle in a doctor's office is specifically to put it at a specific part in the mouth or in the lip, or what you're trying to put it. You're trying to put it just below the skin layer. So you have to do this with some precision. And as will surprise no one, these ramjet things basically are not controlled. Not for at least the reasons that they're not coming from medical suppliers. So they're coming from God knows where. Apparently they're coming from Alibaba and eBay and sites like that. Great. So people are buying this thing to inject substances into their body from like eBay and Alibaba and Wish.com. If this sounds like an increasingly bad plan, you've reached the right conclusions. But this is what people apparently are doing. Super wonderful. And people are having all kinds of side effects as a result of this. Because this, now, not for the least of reasons, because what's in the syringe, or not syringe as the case may be in this case, what's in the not syringe isn't necessarily hyaluronic acid. According to various reports from the FDA, various other substances have been found in these injection pens. What other substances have been found? I'm so glad you asked. Industrial rubber, WD-40, caulk. Now, I am not a doctor in any shape, way, or form, but I believe I have sufficient medical knowledge to conclude that injecting caulk into your lips is a bad plan. And the WD-40 is a bad plan. There appear to be serious injuries from this, potentially even deaths that have resulted. It can lead to all kinds of nasty consequences. At a bare minimum, in the best case scenario, it leads to a very lumpy disposition in the mouth. Because when a professional does it, they inject it at a uniform depth. So the result is uniform. This thing doesn't distribute uniform. It's not really intended to. So by nature, it produces lumps, so it's not even. So it looks bad. That's the best case scenario. It gets worse from there. Then after that, it gets to these wonderful little blue sore-looking things that's in the picture of the thumbnail. You can get those. And then you can get into even worse situations, such as partial paralysis. And you can get into deformities of the mouth. And they may not be correctable. Because what happens when you inject substances in your body, if they're not known to your body, you get a foreign body rejection. Your body gets mad at the thing it doesn't recognize. Now, it does recognize hyaluronic acid because, as I mentioned, it's a naturally occurring substance in the body. Even then, sometimes the immune system does respond, as I understand it, but it's treatable in that case. Not so much with the WD-40 and the caulk for the bathroom. In those cases, it leads to problems, and it may not be able to be removed. It may be permanently there, not for the least of reasons, because as I mentioned, it's not uniformly distributed, so they can't treat it properly. Yeah. When you get it in a doctor's office, if you have an adverse reaction to the stuff that's there, the doctor's office also has a dissolver, right? They have that ready to go. This dissolver can be used at any time, by the way, in case you just get sick of your lips. You can go and get the procedure reversed, right? You can get a dissolver for it. But it's also used as urgent care, right? If you suddenly start having an adverse effect, which is relatively rare, but it's possible, the doctor has the dissolver on hand to treat it immediately, so no harm will come to you. Guess what happens when you do that at your house? Not so much. And also, it's not the hyaluronic acid, it might be WD-40. I'm not sure if there's a dissolver for that. So there's many, many problems. And it also can lead to potential death. It can lead to blindness because it can lead to problems in the nasal cavity. Because as you inject it in your lips, you might get some in your back of your throat, or it might migrate. It might migrate into your nasal cavity. It might migrate into your eyes, leading to blindness. It might cause all kinds of deformities. Super fun. So in the name of not paying $600 to $1,200 for a competent medical professional to use actual medical devices in a sterile environment with trained professionals who also have tools to treat any side effects that might occur instantly, in the interest of not, having to spend that money, because, why am I paying the doctor so much money for the reasons I just specified? I'm just going to do it at home by myself, or one of my friends is going to do it for me, and it's going to work out super great. If you need me to tell you that this is a bad idea, I don't know what to say. Injecting substances you don't know what it is a bad plan. Not recommended. That ends the health portion of this discussion. But I would be remiss, of course, if I didn't once again note, as I've been trying to note several times throughout the stream, I'm not a doctor or a medical professional. I'm just relating the information that I understand. You can check out the original videos on the channels I've said below. Do your own research. But, despite not being a medical professional, I think I can get away with saying, as medical advice, don't inject things that you're not sure what they are, because maybe they came from an untrusted source, such as eBay or Wish or Alibaba. Maybe I can get away with that as medical advice. How about don't do that? That sounds like a really bad plan. I think I can get away with that much. But before we go too far deep into the medical knowledge aspect of it, let's talk about the law, because that's why we're here. We're a legal education channel, and how it might expose our friends at TikTok and the content creators. So some of the doctors I've quoted have said that they're surprised it hasn't been taken down from social media, and that they think social media should take it down. I think they should take it down too. This is obviously dangerous and obviously harmful. Are the media companies liable? Is Facebook liable? Is TikTok liable? Is Twitter liable? And the answer is always no. They are not liable because of our old friend Section CDA 230, the Communications Act of Section 230, which states basically in so many words that a person who publishes content is not the person who distributes content is not the publisher. They're not a publisher. They are merely a platform. So this is a platform publisher distinction, right? So if someone uses the TikTok platform to spread bad advice, TikTok is under no particular obligation to remove it down. They can if they want to. They're free to moderate as they choose. And people have raised the reasonable question on Twitter and otherwise, why aren't these companies, why aren't they taking this down when they take down so many other things for much less? I can't tell you the answer to those questions. I just tell you they can as a matter of law. So why they aren't, I don't know. I suppose one of the reasons they aren't is because they don't have to, because they have no legal liability if they don't. CDA 230 is a pretty powerful provision. It's been read extremely broadly by the courts. You cannot sue TikTok for what someone else has said on the platform. Just full stop. It's not going to work. So the next logical question is, how about the people who are creating the content? In their case, probably. Because if they were merely providing information, if they were merely showing how it was done, and merely providing pure facts, they probably would be okay. Because it's legal to tell someone how a thing is done, even if it's illegal, even if it's an illegal thing. Unless you have specific knowledge, the person you're talking to is planning to do the illegal thing. So unless you have some specific knowledge or some specific reason to believe they're about to take your knowledge and implement it, it's legal to tell people how to do bad things. You can tell people, for example, how to make meth. You can look it up online. It's, there's a chemistry process. You can look it up. Doesn't make it legal, but it makes the actual manufacture of it doesn't make it legal, but telling someone how to do it would be legal. As long as you don't have specific knowledge they're planning on doing it, in which case you might be involved in a criminal conspiracy. So probably you want to be careful on that. But these TikTok influencers they're doing way more than that. They're not just merely saying, here's pure facts. Here are the pure facts. Here's where to get it. Here's how to get it. Here's how to do it. Here's what's in it. They're not just giving pure facts. They're giving encouragement. They're saying things like, go girl, you go girl, get this, look at these luscious lips, you can have them too, right? So they are encouraging, extolling the values of this. So this raises a couple legal problems. The first is civil torts. When you're doing that, when you're creating this advice, particularly to an audience that you know or should know is particularly young, because the TikTok audience trends that way, then you should be particularly careful in the information and encouragements that you're expressing. Because if someone relies on your advice to do something, and then you do the thing and they have an adverse problem from it, you're going to have a bad time. So if they're saying, things like, go get it, look at my lips, it worked for me, it'll work for you, this is a cheap, easy solution, you should do this, encouragement, extolment, now you have a much bigger problem. And of course the TikTok influencers are doing that. So their civil liability is looking problematic at best. There's also some criminal liability, and I posted the relevant section in the description below. It's 22 U.S.C. 331, which deals with manufacturing or false manufacturing of products under the FDA. And there's a long, long list. It's a very long statute. It describes things in immense detail of all the things you can't do. The short version of what 331 says is you can't manufacture a medical device. You can't import a medical device unless you have medical clearances. You can't falsely mark a medical device by saying, for example, hydrochloric injector. That would be example, because it may not have the hydrochloric in it. That would be example of false marking. For example, you can't do a whole bunch of things. As will surprise literally no one, the Fed and Drug Administration is in control of medical devices. They do drugs and medical devices. They, for example, are the ones that clear like pacemakers, for example, or basically anything that goes into your body for a medical purpose, or any device that goes into your body for a medical purpose, I should say. So like a stent would be approved by the FDA, for example. So yeah, if you are making medical devices because they're intended, you're telling people they're for medical devices, right? You're telling someone you can use this on your body to achieve a result that makes it a medical device. You have problems. So you are promulgating that information in a way that provides encouragement. There's some potential liabilities under Section 331. And depending on what provisions you're convicted under, you could be facing a maximum of 1 year, or a maximum of 10 years, depending on which parts of the statute you're triggering. So there's some potential criminal liability exposure for our friends at TikTok. So I would just remind, TikTok people, you need to be responsible, because if you're not responsible, you're kind of on the hook a little bit for what you encourage and what you extol, particularly when it comes to something you're asking someone to do to their own body that may not be. Inject this would be a good example, right? If it's just do this crazy craft thing, if it's inject this into your body, we're having some problems on the medical recklessness standards. So I just wanted to do this video first to say, first of all, if you need me to tell you that injecting something into your body that did not come from an authorized source, like a pharmacy, under the prescription of a doctor who told you how to use it, if you're not doing it under those circumstances, but instead you're black marketing it through the eBays and the Alibaba, if you need me to tell you that's a critically bad idea, it's a bad idea. It's a very dangerous idea and may lead to permanent effects that may not be fixable. These effects might be relatively minor, like lumpy lips or the little blue nodules, which maybe not that big a deal, but they can be substantial. Paralysis, deformities, blindness, and potential death. So, maybe pay the $600 to $1,200 at the doctor's office if it's really a thing you want to do, would be a much better recommendation. And if you don't have $600 to $1,200, maybe you shouldn't go for the super deep cut discount option. Aren't you wondering a little bit why it's 10 to 1 or 20 to 1 cheaper? Maybe don't do that when it comes to things with your life in play. Just a thought. So, all those good things. So let's see if there were any questions before I end. Joe Med said, I wouldn't be surprised that they're generally repurposed injectors and tend to be for insulin. In my area, there's major sketchy businesses to buy people's insulin needles. They may be authentic injectors that have been repurposed, which is illegal. And it may be fake injectors, which have been purposed, which is illegal. But sure, the injectors themselves may be authentic. They were not designed for this purpose in mind. Don't do it. It's a bad plan. I think that's the only question that was raised to me. So yeah, that's all I really have to say about that. So yeah, it can basically form a cement-like substance in your body and basically be unremovable because it's not uniformly distributed. So all those good things. So don't do that. Yeah. What about heroin injections? I can't find a doctor to prescribe that. There's probably a good reason for that. Maybe less with the heroin. So yeah, I I don't think that's a good plan. So that's basically all I have to say. Do I mean rubber cement? Probably that too. Probably that too. It's probably all the things. It's probably anything. It's like it's like buying any black market thing. It's the probability of it being what you really are buying is not particularly high. So be careful in the black market. Not recommended. But that'll be all I have to say for now. If you've enjoyed this medical/legal educational content and advising you and the TikTok creators of why you might be creating some exposure for yourselves under 22 U.S.C. 331, and also, perhaps even more importantly, because who knows if the federal prosecutors will prosecute, but more importantly, civil liability, because if someone gets damaged doing this, I think your probability of getting sued is pretty high. So the civil liability is probably actually even more important in this circumstance. If you've enjoyed me giving that legal analysis, then please remember to like the video. Please remember to subscribe, and please remember to join button. Hit the join button to become a member today. I've been Uncivil Law. I hope us all as well. Cheers and goodbye.